CoryVille Rural Hospital video 2, the sequel to the first one. What I've got here, I'm just going to add to this set of ADTs. I've gone through priority queue in the previous video, but I'm going to add to the set of ADTs. So after people leave the waiting room, they're going to go to the ward. Now the ward is just the list because it doesn't matter what they're doing. So it doesn't matter the order in which they're in, they're just there and then they're getting taken. You can assume that they're getting taken care of. Okay, so that's all that stuff there. So I've got a triage line, that's where the patients go to first. Then there's a triage nurse. Then there is a waiting room after they are seen by the triage nurse, and then after the waiting room they go to the ward, which is a list. That's what we're going to do over here on the left. So what I've got here is I've pasted my queue and I've pasted my priority queue. Now I know you can't see everything there, which is really frustrating, so I am going to have to press a few enters, but that's okay. I was weary about file size. Okay, so I don't have to import lists or anything like that because they come default in Python. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a variable. I'm going to call it, I'm going to make a triage line. So triage line equals QUEUE, and that's empty right now. I am going to make a triage nurse, nurse, I could spell right, and I'm going to put empty string there because I'm going to put strings. I am going to say waiting room, which is a priority queue, UE, and then I am going to make a ward, which is a list, just an empty list. Okay, so I'm going to make some patients. I'm just going to label these patients with their symptoms. So I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to enqueue the symptoms into the triage line. They don't have a priority. I'm just putting there. So first come, first serve. So I'm going to say triage, and you know what? Triage line dot enqueue. No, gotta need a Q there. ENQEUE. QEQE. Cool. ENQEQE. See. Alright, so I am enqueuing a heart attack. Heart attack. I'm going to also enqueue a broken finger, and I'm going to enqueue one other thing. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to enqueue a cold. So that's symptoms basically. Okay, so they have been enqueued. I am now going to check the contents of the queue. So I'm going to say I know. I'm going to say triage line dot print underscore QEUE. Okay, so this will print the contents of the triage line because that's what I've told to do. That's the object I am working with. So it's telling me what's in there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the triage nurse. So the triage nurse, so we're going to say triage nurse, not nurse. I'm going to copy triage nurse just because it's easier. Triage nurse becomes triage line, and the first item, which is head. And then I'm going to say triage line dot DQEUE because they're coming out of the triage line. From there, the triage nurse passes them on to the waiting room. So the waiting room, let's see, so we're going to say waiting room room.enqueue, is going to NQ whatever is in the triage nurse, whatever the triage nurse is looking after there, and they are going to give that a priority of, say, 5. A cold, we don't know what it is, we don't know what else is waiting, so we're going to give it something. We're not going to give it 1 because then we can't really go backwards. We're going to give it a priority of 5. Okay, now I am going to say triage nurse becomes nothing again. And I will print the triage line again. I'm going to print triage line. And I'm going to also print the waiting room. Alright, so what I'm expecting to see here is that I've got people, I'll see, you know what, let's run it, rather than saying it's what I expect to see. Yep, that's fine. I'm going to save this as the hospital. Hospital, every time. Alright, hospital, save, expenses, what have I done wrong? Oh, okay, got to tab this across. And I wonder if that's going to happen again. Alright, run that again. Okay. It's in another window, which I'm going to drag across. So here we have it. So, cold, heart attack, broken finger, heart attack, and then broken finger because the cold has gone to the priority queue. Okay, from there, the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to NQ the next person. So the triage, so I'm going to repeat this. So what's happening here is that the triage nurse takes the triage line, takes the head of the triage line, which is a heart attack. Okay, we DQ from the triage line. We're going to NQ whatever is in the triage nurse, and we're going to give that priority 1 because a heart attack's pretty bad. We then empty the triage nurse. We're going to print the triage line, and we're going to print the waiting room. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to copy this, and I'm doing it 3 times. Because broken finger, I'm changing this. A broken finger is not as bad as a heart attack, but it's worse than a cold, so I'm going to make this 3 because it's got to be a lower number than the cold. And then I'm going to print that. So what I'm expecting to see is that the triage line is going to be empty, the waiting room is going to have 3 people in it. Okay, so here we have, they've come in, cold, heart attack, broken finger. The cold was taken in. Then, I may not have printed them out right, but it's come out okay. So what we've got is we've got the heart attack, the broken finger, and the cold. They're the things that are waiting in the waiting room in order. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, they're going to come out of the waiting room, they're going to go to the ward. So I'm going to say ward.append, whatever is at the head of the waiting room. I'm going to say waiting room.head. And then I am going to print the contents of the ward. And I am going to remove the patient from the waiting room. So waiting room.dque, and I'm going to check that to see how it goes. So I want to print the ward. I'm going to say no, not that. I think I want this symbol, ward. Let's print that. Let's run that. Let's see what happens. Got a comma. Oh yeah. Put that there. No, didn't want to do that. Module. Okay. Okay, cool. So then we're going to do that 3 times because I've got 3 patients in the waiting room. and one more. And this shouldn't have to wait for anything else. Let's run it again. What if I close this, whether it'll come up here again? I just don't want all the other things distracting you there. Yep, save that. Alright. So they've come in with a cold, heart attack and a broken finger. That's the order they've arrived in. The cold person gets administered, or they get sent to the waiting room. They're the only person there. The heart attack and the broken finger are the next two. Then the broken finger is the only thing left. Heart attack and the cold are the things that are there. After that, the queue ends up being empty. From there, we're having a look at the priority queues at the waiting room, and we've got that there. Then they go to the ward. So that's the kind of thing I'm asking you to do for the CoryVille IGB. If you have issues, if you have difficulties or anything like that, please let me know. Send me a message through Teams. For what you've been asked to do, you only need lists, you only need stacks, and you only need a queue. You don't need this priority queue. You can take the information from the Teams post that I made for classwork. But that's all that I'm going to show you right now.